unless, yeah, you have anything else? Okay. I think I'll just introduce Ben so he can give us some information about the program he started, and then hopefully we'll have lots of time for questions. So Ben Kogan is the founder of Reusable Solutions, a sustainability consulting company focused on eradicating single-use plastic, breaking free from fossil fuels, and transitioning us to a circular economy. The company was started in 2020 and houses various projects. Some of these include organizing a net zero music festival, which I also actually want to hear about sometime, because I think Ithaca should do some zero waste festivals, and giving educational talks about zero waste. And most relevant to this event, creating a successful can carrier reuse program throughout the state of Vermont. So I'll stop sharing and Ben can share. And thank you so much for being here today, Ben.
Thank you. Thanks to Zero Waste Ithaca for putting this together. I've seen, different groups across the country putting together initiatives. I mean, it's what I do for work and for fun, and it's just so great to see, people getting together to make these things happen. So thank you guys so much for being part of it and pushing things forward. I don't know if I'd call it an occupational hazard or not, but I didn't have any beer, and on my way here, I was like, oh, I got to get beer. It's for work. I have to bring beer to the thing. Otherwise, it would be like unprofessional of me not to. So this is, I think, assume because it's a beer can carrier talk. I assume it's okay to have a beer during this. So I'm gonna open one up. This is Zero Gravity. They are part of the program, and they are in Burlington. So I'll first open by telling you a little bit about the story about how I got started doing this. So I was throwing one of these can carriers in the bin, the recycling bin back in Massachusetts, and I was reading on the Zero Waste Massachusetts Facebook group that these aren't recyclable. I was furious to hear this, and I called up the guy that posted this. I'm like, no, look, it says right on there. Let's see if we can get a look. Okay. I don't know if it's backwards or not, but it says 100% recycled, 100% recyclable. And I was like, no, it says it right on the thing that they can be recycled. He went into this long diatribe about why that's a lie. They can't be easily recycled at curbside programs. And then even if they are recycled, it's better to reuse them. I think everyone here probably knows the 3 R's, but say it with me: reduce, reuse, recycle. It's like, I can't hear you. I can see like little mouths moving, and it's pretty good. So yeah, you guys did great. Good job so far. Reusing them is better. And the guy who I talked to, Rob, he runs a group called Eco-Friendly Beer Drinker. He told me about this program he had in Massachusetts to collect and reuse them. I was excited to hear this because I've been promoting reuse for years. I wanted to reuse them myself by bringing them back to breweries, but the thought of them saying no, or even worse, laughing at me, it was something that is too difficult to overcome. So I had a conversation with Rob, and I'm like, Rob, I want to bring this to Vermont. Can you help me? To my delight, he said yes. And and he coached me through the process. Now I have no problem calling up any brewery in the country and asking if they'll collect and reuse them. And now we're collecting over 10,000 can carriers a month and reusing them, and it feels good. It's really great that, it went from like total like panic, like it's seeming overwhelming, to being able to talk to you guys about it and help promote it widely. It's not, the logistics and mechanics of it aren't that difficult. It's just, it takes some group work. People need to work together. So regarding this talk, I'm going to just kind of give you an overview, is that I'm going to separate it into four parts. And after each part, I'm going to just open it up for some questions. First part is collection points. The problem with can carriers, why they're a problem for the environment, why should people care, and how the system works. So that's actually part one. I don't know, I gave you all these different things. And then second part is promotion. It takes, I'll sort of share what we did. It could be better. I mean, just take what you want from it, but we had some success with some of our promotion strategies. I'll talk about where the funding came from and the communication between the breweries and the distributor, and the collection points to make it all work. So here we go. Okay, this is the deck. Vermont Can Carrier Reuse Info Deck. All right, Vermont Can Carrier results from November 21st, so from November 2021 to present day. Reusable Solutions, that's me, and Eco-Friendly Beer Drinker, that's the guy that I talked to on the phone from Massachusetts, have been running a can carrier program. There are now over 60 locations throughout the state of Vermont to return these carriers. With incredible support from our brewer and distribution partners, we have been able to collect 10,000 can carriers a month to be washed and reused by the breweries. We estimate over 100,000 have been reused since its inception. This is a money shot to me. This is like, yes, we did it. This is a pallet of can carriers. It's about 10,000. This is what, trying to give you a visual is how many we're collecting a month. It's about 10,000. This is at Vermont Beer Shepherd, who is the distributor in Vermont, one of our partners that is dropping the beer off at the collection points, which are like a co-op, a beer store, or a grocery store, wherever they're selling beer, gas station, whatever. They drop off the beer and they pick up the can carriers. More results. From November 21st to September 22, 75,000 can carriers were rescued at 50 plus take back locations. That number is more now that's January 23. 90% of them were cleaned and reused by eco-minded breweries who saved $9,000. 1,620 fewer pounds of freight were shipped from Oregon to Vermont. That's a distance of 3,000 miles, and that's a reduction of 3/4 of a ton of harmful greenhouse gas emissions. The problem is that plastic can carriers are not recyclable in the curbside bin, but they can be reused or recycled by some breweries. When they are not being recycled, lots of them can end up going to landfill or incineration in the US. Billions of can carriers go to landfill or incineration in the US every year. Despite being marketed as sustainable, only a fraction of them are collected and reused by breweries, and even fewer get recycled. Plastic's impact on nature. When not properly recycled, plastic carriers and rings sometimes leak into the environment and pose danger to wildlife, especially marine life and seabirds, which can become entangled in them or ingest the plastic particles that result from carriers breaking down into smaller pieces. New can carriers contribute to climate change and pollution through extraction. Plastic is made from oil, and that needs to be extracted from the ground. And then the act of producing this plastic, that creates carbon emissions and air pollution. Then it gets transported to the point of sale. In our case, it goes to the brewer. They make one of these can carriers in Oregon. They ship it to the breweries here in Vermont. So there's all that. That's what we were able to reduce in that previous picture over here, is that the pounds of 1,620 fewer pounds of freight shipped. That's from Oregon to Vermont. Where were we? So they get shipped to the breweries. The breweries slap them on the beer. And so that transportation is kind of what that references here. Consumers are going back and forth to the store, creating carbon emissions. Then they have the waste industry, which comes and picks up these can carriers for recycling or for trash. And in the unlikely event that they do get recycled and don't get thrown out anyways, even if that happens, we're still creating carbon emissions because, we all know 3 R's. What are they? Reduce, reuse, recycle. I can't hear anyone. It's very surreal to I play music for a living before this.
Reduce, reuse, recycle. We're all
Thank you. I needed that badly. We should be focusing on the first two, not the last one. This is I was bringing you down so I can bring you up. The solution is reuse. Reuse is the most environmentally conscious practice. Reduce the number of new ones needed by reusing them as often as possible. Plastic recycling is flawed and should be viewed as a last resort for damaged, unusable carriers. As you know, reuse is hard. We make it easier by making a map of drop-off points and providing collection bins and signage. I heard that Zero Waste Ithaca is thinking about making their own bins. I think that's great. I just want to say, like, my biggest pet peeve is when anybody puts like what's supposed to go in the bin on this part of the bin over here as opposed to above it. People aren't looking, it's hard to get people to recycle anyway. Like, some people you're never going to reach, but we have to make it as easy as possible and have it be like at eye level, right? Like when you're going to throw something out in the trash can, you don't poke your head down to see what's supposed to go in there. You kind of look at the top. So that's like where your eyes go. So I think it's important to have signage up top more than it is to have signage like on the side of the bin. So just so people can see it. How it works. This is the last slide before I'll start taking some questions. Consumers return the carriers to collection points. So that's like a co-op, a grocery store, gas station, wherever you're buying beer. Carriers are then delivered back to the breweries. So the beer distributor, they're dropping beer off. They drop the beer off, and then they'll pick up a case tray of can carriers when they leave. So a case tray is about, I should have a prop for that. That's it's like the cardboard trays for beer. They hold a case. It's 24 beers, and you can fit them in there. So you got, oh, there, it's right here. This thing here, that's a case tray. So they'll the distributor asks the collection point to pack it like this, so it's easy to put on the truck. Okay, where was I? Carriers are delivered back to the breweries. The breweries clean and reuse the can carriers, and then less plastic waste in the environment. That's part one. I'm sure people have questions. Who's got some questions? You can either like ask it yourself, or Jessica, if you want to read it, I'll let you. You're moderating. I'm gonna stop talking and let you moderate.
I am. I have lots of questions. We also have some. I see one in the chat from Spencer. He says Michigan has a large brewery culture, just as many breweries as there are lakes. I'm from Wisconsin, so I know what you're talking about. So he says, not sure how advanced the brewing industry is in Vermont, but how have regional brewers gotten involved in your state? Noted in Michigan, hyper-local breweries, restaurants that brew beer simply use growlers as opposed to can and can carriers. So maybe, yeah, how have you worked with like different sizes of breweries?
It's better for the small breweries. The big breweries, they don't use them. They're less receptive to it because they use an applicator, and the reused ones don't work as well in the applicator. Think of it like a printer. If it's bent even a little bit, it jams the applicator, and it's hard for them to reuse it. It's best for breweries. I don't have a good metric, but let's see. Breweries that aren't like the biggest are more likely to be reusers, but they can all collect, right? They can all collect the can carriers and then get them to the breweries that need it.
Rick, do you want to say your question?
Yeah. So if they're picked up at a grocery store, and I'm assuming that there's a few different beer drop-off people, how do you decide who gets to pick them up?
Anyone can. It's kind of like first come, first serve for the most part. So we have this thing, I'll talk about it a little later, but a listserv. So you familiar with a listserv,
Yeah.
Rick? Cool. It's like a Google Groups listserv where like the grocery store may say, hey, we have X amount of beer flats available for pickup. And then someone says, hey, I'll come by and I'll grab them. That's like option one. What works even better is the distributor, is that the distributor comes and picks up these things whenever they're doing the transaction. They drop off the beer and then they pick up the can carriers. And that works better because I don't have to get involved. It's like because it's like as of this point, my involvement is like in case people have questions or things go wrong, but there's not much I have to do at this point. It's more or less running itself.
I'm going to want a lot more specifics about how that happened, but I want to make sure that that Allison has a chance to ask a question.
Hi, yeah, I had like kind of a two-part question. So is the blue recycle bin, is that the way you guys collect them? Is that the only way?
No, there's the blue recycle bin is one way. The other way is the I think it's better. I'll show you a picture again. Are these things here?
Okay, so
The
you
wooden
don't
one.
connect with them. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if there's apple orchards, I love sourcing these used. I've been able to get a bunch of them used from like a grocery store here, but apple orchards, get rid of them. Um, yeah, I feel like every place in Vermont's got like tons of these things. I haven't actually been able to get my hands on too many of them, but uh, I like my vote's for the wooden box. You get less contamination that way. People don't view it as trash; they view it as like something else, right? Like just like a mindset. I'm sure you guys probably think about this. It's like what is trash, right? Like what? How do you define what trash is? And if you don't think it's trash, then people are less likely to put things that belong in the trash in there, if that makes any sense.
That was going to be kind of the second part of my question is how often do you guys have trouble with contamination? Because I know people are not great at avoiding contaminating things.
It's not bad. I'll put it that way. I don't have a great like 1% or stat or whatever, but it's pretty rare. And when you have the wooden boxes, it's less.
A question that came in through chat, and then we'll get to more of the raised hands. But it's a two-part question. So they're asking about the role of the beer distributors. And are you working with both distributors and breweries that do direct deliveries? And then do the same carriers go back to the same breweries, or do people take different?
Sure,
different
yeah,
carriers?
I got this. So the first part of that question is, I'll answer the second part first, is that no, they don't go back to the same one. It goes wherever people want, wherever they're wanted. It's not like what's neat about these is that they're standardized, that first of all, somebody designed without even trying necessarily to create the first reusable can carrier. Like, I think the hardest part, I've been working in reuse for the past few years, and like there's like the process of designing something and making it functional, and then there's like getting everyone to use it. Everybody already uses these. Like those parts are already done. Like the hard part's done. We just have to collect them. It's like designing a product takes like months and like tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that part's already done. So they created by accident like a reusable can carrier that like 90% of craft breweries are using. So.
And people aren't particular about like the colors they get back, or do you on the listserv, do you say what colors are available?
I love that question. So yes, some places are. And sorry, I'll answer this two ways. One is that one of the brewers uses multicolors on purpose because he thinks it's a good like conversation starter. It looks cool, right? To have like a bunch of different colors. It's confusing to some people, but other people are like, oh, that's cool to like see like this kaleidoscope of different colors. Some people are like, oh, is this the same beer as the other one? And you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. So that's that part. So some places are specific to color, but what's interesting about this, there is a market opportunity, and I'm looking at you, Brittany, is that to collect them and then wash them and sort them and then sell them back to brewers. There's lots of brewers that have told me here they would pay like a similar price to what they pay for them new if they're sorted and washed ahead of time, because that's kind of like that's something that they don't want to do because it could take too long. There was another part of the question, Jessica, you asked, the first part. What was that?
Yeah, I should have done two questions. Just the role of, is it both distributors and breweries that do direct deliveries that are picking up and transporting them?
Yeah. So a lot of breweries, once a brewery gets to a certain size, like there's liquor laws all across the country are very different. So in some places, I think New York is one of them, where you're not allowed to bring your beer directly to a grocery store or co-op. You have to sell it through a distributor. And some beer companies they're like, oh well, we'll just open up a distribution company. It has to have a different name, and then that's the distribution company. So the answer to the question is yes. I work with distributors, and I also work with brewers. There's only one distributor that is doing the pickups of the can carriers to bring them back and collect them.
Okay. Christina, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah. So on that note, was it difficult to get that distributor on board because the brewery is paying for the carrier? So there's no incentive for the distributor to want to pick it up as easy as you make it for them. I'm wondering how you
Yeah, they were like
idea.
really open to this. So I remember sketching out on a piece of paper. Sometime I used to live in New York in the city for like 12 years, and I moved to Vermont like 2 years ago, and sketching on a piece of paper saying like distributor picks up whatever they're dropping off, and it's like it's easy for them. And so I think you just have to find a distributor that is like interested in doing it. This distributor in Vermont is excited about it. They're sort of a smaller one, but it seemed to me that any distributor I talked to about it seemed open to be like, oh yeah, we're dropping the stuff off. It's no skin off of our back to pick them up. So I think if you call them, you may find out that like they're actually pretty into it.
That'd be great. Spencer, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, so kind of a mix of questions when it comes to picking up, but also bin types. So I'm working on my true certification, which is like a zero waste operation certification through the US Green Building Council. Regardless, seems like the standard of using the like wooden crate bins makes sense for this program. But that's kind of for the customers. What do you do with the distributor collection? Like, is that a milk crate? Is that just any crate that you can find? Just a particular question on that.
Yeah, that's it goes into these beer flats. So what you see in the pallet is like that's how the distributor is grabbing them from the collection point. So I'll pull this up again. So if you see on here, I can probably zoom in. Excuse me. There's one place we had bags like to start. This is kind of it's like looking at I don't know if any of you guys were into geology as a kid, but like you look at like different layers of rock, like where it started. Like this is where it started, and then this is like where it ended up over here at the bottom. Some places use these just some plastic bags, and the distributor didn't like that because it wasn't easy to stack on the truck. This is what we use here is those cardboard beer flats. That's how it gets to the distributor.
Ah, okay. I was like, how do we make it as efficient as possible so that they can get it back into their own supply stream? So, okay.
Mm-hmm. Rick, go ahead.
Okay, Ben. So do you have a grocery store that is participating that you can tell us the name of?
Sure. Yeah. Middlebury Food Co-op. That's in Middlebury, Vermont. Most of them are co-ops. I don't have any like major grocery stores. Vermont, I think, has more co-ops than people. So some stat like that over here. There's so many co-ops in Vermont. But yeah, Middlebury Food Co-op. I'm going to show you a map in a minute that has all the locations. But yeah, there's 60 locations throughout the state, and most of them are co-ops.
Okay. The one other question I had was, how much are these things new? So what is, the cost differential that maybe I can interest somebody in?
They're like, it's funny. I was learning so much while doing this project is that like breweries can't tell me what they cost. Like, I'm not like, there's like, I think because it was from the listserv and there's like all these breweries on the chain, they can't say it because it would be collusion. I think, I don't know, my landlord in my office space is a lawyer, and he's like, I don't think they're reading into that right. But anyway, I didn't get a straight answer from like the group, but it's somewhere between like 15 to 25 cents. That's the best estimate I can give.
Yeah. Okay.
We have a question in chat that is a
Yeah.
question I have as well. Because I was talking to a bartender about this the other day, and he's like, you know, at bars, if you order a can of beer, they just rip it off a 4-pack, and then they have all these can carriers at the end of the night. So do you work with bars in this program?
Yeah, there's only one bar that's part of it. But I would work with bars. Anyone that has a whole bunch of these, they can do it too.
Yeah. Okay. And I know you have, Ben, did you say you have another like part of your presentation?
Oh yeah, I got like 3 more parts.
Okay, so I'm sure we could just do questions too, but you can structure the night how you
Cool.
like.
I'll keep going. All right. So
Okay.
I think one of the things that worked well about this was the promotion aspect. Oh, I guess there's one thing I forgot here. This is like the back end. No one's seen this except for like a few people, so I'm excited to show you guys. Is that this is like the master plan for the flow, is that a listserv call goes out with a full bin. So that's something like this here. Oops, that's not the right one. So City Market Co-op in, I think it's, which one is it? They have 2. Oh no, in Burlington goes out and says, hi, there are 2 boxes of carriers to be picked up at 207 Flint Ave. That's where this co-op is. This person is from Switchback, Vermont. They said, just grab them, thanks. And so that's one way that it works, is that like someone sends out a message to the listserv. There's like, let's see, it's about 15 reusers on this listserv, and then they'll respond to whoever originally posted, I'll grab them, or they'll respond to the whole group to let people know that they're going to get it. Okay, so that's like step 1. And then in that situation, the local reuser picked it up. That's switchback. If that doesn't work or they don't receive a response, then what the collection point does is they give it to a distributor. And these are 3 distributors in Vermont. Vermont Beer Shepherd is the only one that's doing it right now, but we were in touch with these 2 other places. Sorry, it's usually very quiet here. Sounds like I'm in New York again. Yeah, Vermont Beer Shepherd is a distributor. They're the only one in it. These other 2, they might join later. So after that, Vermont Beer Shepherd brings it back to their warehouse, which is the picture that you saw earlier tonight. And then from here, there's 3 options. You can distribute it to your supplier or brewery partner. So they get like a whole bunch of these, and each distributor, they have like a roster of breweries that they work with. And they ask their breweries, say, hey, does anyone need 5,000 can carriers? Does anyone need 3,000 can carriers? If not enough people are interested in that, then they sort of pass it out to non-brewery partners, which are places that that are not on their roster, that they're from another distributor's roster, but those breweries will say, yeah, sure, like we'll come down to your warehouse and pick up 5,000 next week. If there's still too many after that and they can't get rid of them, they give them to what's called a mobile canning company. So a quick, talk about the production of beer is that after you make the beer, they're in these big vats, and then they need to bring it down to size from big vats to cans or bottles or kegs, however they're like packaging them. And so canning lines are pretty expensive. A canning line is just like the equipment needed to make to can the beer. So there's this mobile canning operation where they come in a truck and all their equipment. They say, hey, our beer will be ready next week. Like the brewery calls, Zero Gravity will call up Ironheart Canning and say, hey, we're looking to can, in 3 weeks. Can you come this day to can it? And they say, yeah, sure, we'll come and can it. And they bring their whole line. You should check them out on Instagram, Ironheart Canning. It's if you're bored and you like looking at like, really sophisticated, complex pieces of machinery like that are packaging beer. I do. So check them out. It's pretty interesting. And yeah, they'll come for the day, they'll can it, and then when they're done, they'll leave, pack up their stuff, and can somewhere else. So what's cool about them is that they're really big and they have a lot of warehouse space. So one time, Vermont Beer Shepherd called me up. This was like my first work emergency, and they're like, we have too many, like we have to get rid of them. More or less, he was like saying, like, if we can't get rid of them or have a plan to get rid of them in the next week or so, like we're gonna stop doing the program. Which to me, like, they're the linchpin to this whole program. So if they're not picking them up, like the program's over, which would be really sad. But we were able to talk to Ironheart Canning, and they're like the release valve for if Vermont Beer Shepherd can't get rid of the can carriers themselves. Ironheart Canning will come by with their truck, pick them up, and then bring them to their warehouse. What's cool, and there's a lot of synergy here, breweries that are likely to get Ironheart Canning because they're not big enough to like do it on their own, to have their own canning line, are also the same breweries that are interested in that would be applying these can carriers by hand instead of by machine. And that's like the dividing line. Like if they do it by hand, they're more likely to be able to do it. So Ironheart Canning will give a whole bunch of these to their clients when they go out on their canning day. If none of this works, which we actually haven't had to send any to recycling yet, is that there is like it's if it's already source separated, the material, I mean, it's the thing about these is that the material is 100% recyclable. It's HDPE, which has some of the highest value for plastic on the market, but it has to be separated first. So if they can be separated and then given to a plastics processor without having to separate them first, then they can get recycled. But if that's not happening, that's more or less why they're not likely to get recycled. There's also, which is pretty cool, is there is a bike fender. There's two different other outlets around here. There's some guy called Trash Plastics. I forget his name. That's not his name. That's the name of his company. Is that
Ben? Is it?
Oh, do you know him?
I do.
Okay. I don't know who said that, but
Brittany did.
Oh, okay. Hey, sorry. I can't see on the side. Yeah, I think Finn. I don't know if that's his name.
No, Ben.
Ben?
Yeah, where he's taking plastic and he's making like new stuff out of it with a machine.
Yeah, he like blends it down and melts it, and he turns it into bike fenders. That's like his thing up here. So that's an option. So he's also on the reuse list. So if someone sends out like an email like you saw before saying, hey, I got 2 boxes of can carriers, he may respond and say, yeah, I'll take them. If that doesn't work, there's also an outing, Vermont Outing Club or Brattleboro Outing Club. They're using them as trail markers. So there's lots of uses for these things, and that's the can carrier master plan. Okay, on to promotion. What I feel like made it successful was that we sent this out to everyone. We made it really easy. We had like a Google Drive that had sample text and pictures of us dropping it off, and they used it on their Instagram and also other social media, like you can see over here. Like Four Quarters Brewing, we took some pictures in front of the sign, and everybody posted about it. So it got, it got some really great reach. There's just so many accounts that have tens of thousands of followers have promoted it. Also sending it out to local brewery magazines they're going to pick it up, for sure. Brewview is the one here in Vermont. American Craft Beer, they'll definitely cover it because they covered this. Vermont Business picked it up. Brewbound is also national. If you guys launched it in Ithaca, they'll probably pick it up. Craft Brewing Business, same thing, also national. This is an old report. Waste Dive picked up the one we did. A friend of mine called it the Vogue for people in the waste industry. So I was so excited to get in Waste Dive. I felt like I could die happy. Okay, what else do we have? Pilot report. emails and Google Docs of collection points. Let me just grab this together.
You know, I reached out to Ironheart Canning actually because I know they work with at least one brewery here.
Oh,
with
really?
South Point. They
Man,
work
they
with
are
South Point.
big.
I know
They're
they're
like-
everywhere.
They're
So
huge.
that's great to know that they're already involved, so I can follow up with them.
Yeah, I can put you in touch with Anthony. Just remind me
Great.
later, and I'll
Yeah.
definitely do that. This is what I sent to all of the. I like went around and I called it like in different batches to try to keep it organized. And this is what I sent to everyone from that batch. So I did like 10 breweries, 10 collection points at a time, and then we announced it. And so then like we all kind of released it around the same time. And so I gave them text, a picture. So this is like the picture of the bin. And I gave them sample text with all the tags. I was just trying to make it as easy as possible for people to like copy and paste and edit it and not feel like overwhelmed by what they had to do. Yeah, so this is like a main picture, other people, and then I had them tag all the other places that are part of the program: Instagram, Facebook, newsletters, local news. Where's the okay, I took a whole bunch of on-site photos while we were there and gave them to everyone, which, you know, that was fun. It's like my favorite part. I was tired by the end of the day. This is one of the sponsors, Lawson's. We did some of these trips with my friend Cliff, who had a partial EV, and so it was kind of cool to at least get part of our trip like powered by the sun.
When you say sponsor, what do you mean by that?
Sure, I'm gonna get to that in
got it.
just a minute, but that's a great question. I'm sure people are interested in that. Okay, so that's that part. There's also a press release who Rob might do it for, like he did it, he might do it for free. I'll definitely, likely make a map. So where was I? So a map and a press release, those are really key. So the press release, this is like the kind of thing you'd send to local news, just anyone that you want to cover it. So we had a website and like wrote this and said, hey, this is our press release for the Can Carrier Program, some catchy headline, and then sent it out to them. And then the map, here's the map. So someone asked before, like what places are on there. Rutland's still killing me. I haven't got a place there, but we have places, every other corner of the state. So this is where I live. This is like, I can see it from my window. It's right over there. The Village Butcher Shop, they do craft beer as well as like, meat and whatnot. The Woodstock Farmers Market, which surprisingly is not like, we also have a farmers market during the summer, but this is a store. It's confusing. I can't get into that right now. This is Sushi Yoshi. This is the only restaurant that's part of the list. This is like a craft beer store in Ludlow. I'll just do a couple more of these just for Red Clover Ale. That's a brewery that picks them up. And then, what are other ones? Oh, Suncom is a sponsor. We don't usually have like, it doesn't always go to the sponsor's place because it didn't make sense, but they were close to a collection point and agreed to bring it there when it's full. This is like a co-op. This is the guy that sent an email before saying, hey, we have, a few boxes of can carriers ready. Who wants them? So that's the map. All right, that's that part. Does anyone have any questions about the promotion part?
I'm curious about sorry. Yayoi, go ahead.
Sorry. I'm interested in finding out, like, it seems like it's all over the state. And one question is, it seems as though you have like more like a network rather than like a central location where that you collect all the carriers. My question is, how do you keep track of all the numbers of things that you collect? And also it seems like you have way too many, like, than you can handle. So I want, it seems to me like, this is just a comment, but like, it seems to me that this is a situation where it's kind of like it shows the problem of the system. Like it's a really, like you try to collect them, but there aren't enough outlet, and those carriers are continuing to be produced and made, and most of them are thrown away. So kudos for you for collecting them. But yeah, I'm just wondering how you are counting, and also like if are there any like main places that you mentioned, iron something?
Yeah, Ironheart Canning,
Yeah.
and also Vermont Beer Shepherd.
Okay.
So I think I can answer those questions. So the beer distributor, they're going to all those places just about. They have like 300 to 400 like they call them accounts throughout the state, and so they're going there anyways. So that's kind of why it works, is because they're going to these places and then they're picking them up. So for the most part, Vermont Beer Shepherd is grabbing the can carriers, bringing them back to their warehouse, and then bringing them to the brewers that are part of their roster. If they're carrying too much, Ironheart Canning kind of takes the leftovers and then brings them to their accounts. So it's like a lot of the problems have been solved since Ironheart Canning has come aboard, but we definitely could use more reusers. Like trying to convince more breweries to reuse is that would be great.
Very interesting.
There's a
Thank
question
you.
in chat: who sorts and washes the carriers?
Those are the breweries.
Are they happy to do that, or do they not?
So, I mean, sort of. I mean, some of them, like, they're people too. Like, a lot of them are like, I think, predisposed to be interested in the environment, and they're like, oh yeah, like I'll clean and reuse them because I feel like it's the right thing to do. But B, they also save, they're getting like thousands of can carriers for free. So I think it's like an economic argument and also an environmental argument for them that we can win.
I have so many questions. I'm curious. I imagine now that it's up and running, it's easier to get new partners on board. But how did you start?
I just cold called a whole bunch of breweries. Breweries are where I started. The program in Massachusetts isn't as robust as this one. When Rob was doing it, he was just asking breweries to collect the can carriers, not asking like grocery stores and co-ops. It was just breweries. And so we started with breweries, got a lot of them in there, and then expanded to grocery stores and co-ops, and just called them for a while, and eventually found the right people. And there's a lot of people excited about it. It's pretty cool that there's people have heard of this and they're excited to do it.
Yeah, I hope that's the case for us too.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Allison, why don't you go ahead?
I just have a quick question about like how many times can they be reused, and how do you sort out which ones are no longer viable?
So for me, I and Rob, we just set it up. We don't handle that part ourselves. We just like establish it, promote, like we get the collection bins, we try to onboard the places, and we help promote it. And that's and then we help like with any back end problems. So that's more or less where our responsibility stops. But we do know the ins and outs in a lot of this, and that you kind of need a brewery, like at least one brewery, to like take the lead on it. So you asked about who sorts it and cleans it. So the breweries sort it and clean it. Sometimes they don't sort it themselves. Sometimes they don't put them into separate colors. They just do like a multicolor thing. They can tell if they're broken just when they put it on. It's usually a tab. One of these, this is like what holds it together, these little tabs here. Is that the right one? Yeah, if this little tab like clicks off, then it won't hold it anymore. And so they can tell when they're doing it, if it's broken or not.
This is a question I want to make sure to bring up, and it's probably a larger discussion, but I know it's close to 9. But do you have a vision for, I mean, we love this program because it keeps plastic out of the recycling and trash stream. I think a lot of us working in this field want no plastic, no non-essential plastics produced. And so is there, like when you think ahead 10 years for a program like this, is there a way that plastic can carriers like go away and something else?
Yeah, that's a good question. What's really cool about this is that it's a gateway drug to all reuse. I'm putting a lot of pressure on this. You can make it. You can do it.
We've been talking about it like that too. I hope. Yeah.
Is that like it helps? It's already used. Like I was saying earlier, like it's been designed and it's already used. So like if we can get people used to bringing things back to a location and then getting back to the producer, then we can do it for lots of things. I mean, milk is one of those things that still happens. Do you have a reusable milk glass containers in Ithaca at any of your grocery stores?
Burn Dairy does it.
Okay. There's some dairies around the country that are doing this. It's still happening. It's like one of the few things that like reusable glass milk containers are still happening. I'm hoping that this leads the way for reusable glass bottles, which is happening in Oregon. There's a company called Double Mountain Brewing or Double Back Mountain Brewing. Something just opened up in Montana. So I am pushing for that too. I have a lot of other things on my plate, but I am pushing for that reusable glass bottles. I mean, kegs are the best. Like I guess a keg and a glass bottle is kind of similar. There's not much waste happening there. But anyway, regarding growlers, I love growlers. They're great, but you also you need friends. Like you can't drink a growler by yourself like all the time. It's like 4 beers, right? And it doesn't keep for, over 24 hours almost. Like you have to be ready to drink it like that night. So there's that. I'm going to move on to the funding part because I know you had some questions about that, Jessica, and someone asked about profit-making business. Mm-hmm. Happy to tell you everything I know. So it started off by, I was talking to someone at Casella, which I think you probably have it up in Ithaca, right?
Oh, that was actually another question that somebody messaged me too about Casella.
Yeah, they sponsored the pilot kind of, I don't really know why. It was easy. I wasn't trying hard. It was one of those things that just happened. And so I think I asked them for to sign something saying that these can carriers can't be recycled. And then they were like, I'm like, oh, we're trying to get a pilot program funded. And they're like, yeah, we might be able to fund that. Huh. And I think it was maybe they didn't want that thing to get out. It's kind of the thing with recycling in general is that it's to protect the plastic companies or the waste companies from revealing the truth that recycling isn't working. So anyway, they funded this and they funded the pilot. So that's what happened. So there was a sponsorship. So this program was funded via sponsorship model. Companies pay to have their names on the collection bins and mention the press releases and the promotional materials. So some companies that funded this would possibly be interested in funding yours. I consult on this, so if anybody wants to talk about this more, I can help you. But let me just start by saying who sponsored this one. Let's see if I can get a good picture here. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so this is sponsored by Suncommon, which is a solar company. Lawson's Finest Liquid, which is a brewery, and Muskoma Bank. So Lawson's was the first person to say yes. And so having a brewery sponsored, it's a good look for them to say oh, we're doing something positive for the environment. Solar companies are good because they have money. They have marketing budgets and you can kind of get them into beer stores. I'm hoping that every beer store that we have also gets solar. I mean, that would be that would be great. Like, you know, pushing solar is also important. So there's I think a good amount of synergy there between solar companies and breweries. So like the breweries could be powered by solar power, where they're selling beer could be powered by solar power. You know, there's a lot of potential there, I think. And then the last part is Muskoma Bank. And Muskoma Bank, they have like a donation process. The only way I was able to access those funds is I had to partner with a 501c3, which I don't know if you guys are already, but yeah, getting donations from different places to get this kind of program started. I'll just tell you how much it costs. Like 10 grand is like the total amount of, I think that's what it takes to start one of these programs. I didn't get it all at once. If someone's like, oh, start a program in my area, I would say, yeah, okay, yeah, 10 grand. That's what it'll be to get, you know, it depends on the number of locations. That's kind of where the work happens. But, you know, 50 locations or so, like I'd say, yeah, 10, it would take 10 grand to do that. But if you're all volunteering your time, it's like the actual cost for you running a program like this are just the cost of the bins and the time it takes to, you know, cold call 50 breweries and, well, maybe not 50, but call like 30 breweries and call a whole bunch of restaurants and grocery stores and then promote it. So it's just, it's a lot of time. Are you muted? You're muted.
Which, if anybody on this call wants to help out with those efforts, I dropped my email in the chat. So it's jessica@zerowasteithaca.org. Yeah,
That's just one of the funding things. I'll answer some questions about this if you guys have it, but there's 2 other funding sources I can list.
Oh yeah, great.
Who else? Does anyone else have questions about this part of it?
I just had a quick question. So then would you recommend getting the sponsorships first and then finding and connecting and calling the breweries, or the other way around?
It's a chicken or egg situation, because like once you have something already going, it's easier to find sponsorships because they can see it happening. If it's just based on an idea, then they might be less likely to sponsor it. But then, you know, it depends how much you're asking for. Like I got this in multiple small donations. Like I can just tell you how much everyone put in. Lawson's put in 1,500, which I was a little disappointed by, and then they didn't renew it later, even though they said that. They're like, oh, we'll start with 1,500. I was asking, let's see, I was trying to say, if I got one sponsor, it was 8,000, and that turned out to be, I didn't get any takers on that. It seemed like people were comfortable in like the $1,000 to $2,000 range for sponsorships. But then that means you have to get 5 sponsors, which, you know, getting the sponsors takes a lot of work. I mean, I probably was like, probably like 1 for 20. Maybe not, maybe 1 for 15. It was a lot. It was a lot of no's, and it's a little disheartening. You have to have like iron nerves. Just be like, all right, I think I heard once, like, just trying to get to 50 no's a day. Just like, I just have to get to my 50 no's a day, and then I can leave. Then I'm done with my job.
Then you get to have
if you can handle that. I mean, I think it's good, you know, if you have someone that has a background in sales, that like, you know, they could even get a commission on it. Like, I think that's totally reasonable to say, oh yeah, you get these sponsorships, like we'll give you 10% or whatever you can get. I mean, it's a skill. Any more questions on the sponsorship side?
I don't see any.
Maybe I do. So,
okay,
like,
great.
Yes. How do you, like, you know, so let's say you get funding. Where did you exactly put the fund to? Like, you know,
I mean, there were some hard costs like the bins, but it was mostly for our time. For my, I did most of it. So it was like for putting the time to making the promotional materials and just talking to people like all day long about and trying to get them, onboard them to the program, and trying to work out all the kinks.
I see. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Any other money questions?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you get any grants from anybody?
Grants are on the next, that's the next list, next
Okay.
topic. I'll cover that in 1 second. Anyone else on the I guess sponsorship questions? All right, looks like no. All right, yeah. All right, so you're up, Rick. Yes, we didn't get any grants. I didn't really know where to find them. There is something that I don't know if you guys have been following. I think you really got to check it out if you haven't, called the EPA Swiffer Grant. Has anyone heard of this? They literally have millions of dollars to give away. Just millions of dollars. This is part, remember the Infrastructure Act that passed? Not the Inflation Reduction Act, but the Infrastructure Act. That was this big debacle with Schumer, and like people were like saying no, like we're not going to accept less than whatever, but then said, all right, fine. Like I don't know if anyone remembers this, but this happened like 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. It was like to fix bridges and other things within the United States, but it's also to help fix recycling and to help with like waste reduction efforts. So that's a big one. There's like a lot of paperwork, but I think they said like the total amount awarded, I mean, it's throughout multiple municipalities and businesses and whatever throughout the country, but I don't know. I think it's like 500 million, maybe more. It's a lot of money. And so I think it could really fund this kind of thing. So look at EPA Swiffer grant. I think some of them are due like by February.
I think it's February 15th. I was looking at it. It's kind of a really complex grant, and you need to go through steps and things like that. But it's a massive grant. It's nice. And I think it's mostly for municipal organizations. One of them is like you can apply as a nonprofit or something like that.
Yeah. They have some, Upstream has some information there. I don't have that much on it, but if you look up EPA Swiffer grants, there's some possibilities there. Second thing is there's a person, I know some people are involved with Upstream. Marcel Howard is from Upstream, and he has a list of available grants that I think are not as difficult, not as complicated as EPA. Just has a list, and like I just saw them, like, oh my God, there's like 10 grants that I could probably apply for that I'd be eligible. So I'm putting that on the table. Did you have anything else to say about grants, Rick?
No, other than everybody feels they're kind of overwhelming.
Yeah. Having someone that can help you navigate that is probably helpful. The other thing I did just like once was I charged the stores. So like this was a plan. If I couldn't get funding, is like, yeah, every store that wants the collection bin, I was going to say, yeah, it's like $200 as a one-time fee. After talking to people, it seemed like it would make it smart to do like a yearly fee, because, having like revenue every year would, is definitely helpful, especially if you intend to keep working on it as opposed to just do it once. So yeah, charging the stores, like they pay for a trash disposal. It's definitely more than $200 a year, and like if they want to like promote this on their website or whatever, them spending, like $300 or $500 a year on this thing, it might be worth it to them. So the stores themselves might want to just say, oh yeah, okay, I'll pay X amount of dollars to have this in my store every year.
Interesting.
Ben, are you a 501c3 group?
No, we are for profit. For profit, for planet.
Have you ever considered sending these like carriers back to the producers? Isn't it so annoying that they?
Yeah, I thought about it, but like as like a protest or like as a as what?
I don't know, because they have no reason to produce any of that anymore. It seems like there's too many of them. So like it just kind of makes sense. Like, yes, as a protest, and maybe they can reuse them. Maybe they are in the best position to reuse them. I do not know. I just wondered.
Yeah, That's a good idea. I think, I mean, I guess the problem with that is that sending them back to Oregon to send them back to Vermont, like, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's better to like reuse them locally. They'd have to get them in the right shape, sellable. They'd be doing the same thing that maybe someone local could do, which is clean, sort, and sell them to the breweries again.
Interesting.
That's all I have. If you guys have more questions, I mean, I'm here to answer questions. I haven't actually talked about can carriers too much because I've been working on this other project, so it's fun to get back into the swing of things. Sarah, you had a question.
Yeah, I might just be confusing the steps, but in collecting and then washing, sorting, washing, you were saying that the breweries are the ones that sort and wash.
Mm-hmm.
How do they then get sold back to the breweries if they're the ones sorting and washing it? Like it.
Sure, yeah, that part hasn't really happened, the selling it to breweries. That was something that they could sell to other breweries if they had enough. They're just using it at their own place. They're washing it, sorting it, washing it, and then putting it on their beer.
Got it. Thanks.
Sure, yeah.
So when an email goes to the listserv and a store says they have some ready for pickup, does it get competitive ever? Or does
Not
it
really.
Okay.
Someone says like I want it, and then they take it. But there's just always can carriers. There's
Okay.
enough. There's like enough to go around. There's plenty.
Okay.
Well, this has been really, really interesting for me because I've been going far too into zero waste that I don't usually buy those cans except for like holidays and some special occasions. So it's a new word to me, but it kind of makes sense that these carriers are there are so many of them, and that like something has to be done. And I think this is a great way to get people's attention. That's what I think, because it's so familiar. It bugs everybody. Like, why are we throwing this away? So thank you for presenting. It was very interesting.
Sure.